Story 1. Backstory. So basically, I worked at a fast casual burger chain. It's not a very large one, but it was franchised. This chain I worked at was owned and managed by a very young university dropout whose parents bought him this franchise. It was entirely staffed by females plus me male. He had no experience in managing or leading a restaurant. I had worked there as part of the original crew and eventually became a supervisor there. This is when the problem started. I was a 15-year-old male working part-time, so he didn't take many of my opinions seriously. When I got my first paycheck, I noticed no pay increase. It is generally a well-known fact that increased responsibilities meant increased pay of any sort. This is when I started to dislike working there, as I was supervising adults who were being paid more than I was simply because adults had a higher minimum wage. His response to me was that he couldn't afford it, while I obviously can't prove it. But with my shifts under my leadership, our customer reviews were consistently 5-star reviews. I never once received lower than 5 stars during my shifts as I focused on customer service. The manager, however, was greedy and never understood the concept of customer service. With many shifts, when a customer would complain about cold fries or an undercooked burger, he simply would tell them they were wrong. Of course, these customers were never to return. He was a cocky jerk and a horrible manager who was consistently absolutely useless. Due to his treatment of customers, he had an abysmal income of roughly $8,000 per week. A manager should never be making comments on their employees like my coworker and I, who were too fat to be sitting on his chair because we would break it with our weight. I play football, am not fat, I just have a large muscle mass. One time I worked during a holiday and was expecting the provincial holiday pay in accordance with provincial requirements. He never paid me appropriately, and when I, along with many other coworkers under my direction, approached him about the pay, he promptly told me it was not my place to talk to him about the law as he was the owner, and I was just a high schooler. He said to me, "According to the law, you are not entitled to this pay," which was not accurate whatsoever. Whatever. One night during a close, which I had covered for the only other supervisor who had called in sick, we had no customers, none, for the 2 hours leading up to close. So I made the decision to shut down the fryers 15 minutes early so that our staff could get out earlier. This would have saved him money. Of course, we had a customer come in 5 minutes before close, and I greeted him. He asked for only fries, and of course, I had to unfortunately let him know that we had no fries left as we were about to close. This customer begged for us to turn on the fryers again and make them fries, and I said no. That's a story for another subreddit. This customer angrily left and left me my first and only 1-star review because we were out of fries at that time. I understand that had I left the fryers on, this would have been avoided. Regardless, the next morning, I arrived at my shift, and he approached me and gave me a verbal warning about the incident, and said that he would be deducting the cost of the fries, the order, and a penalty for the 1-star rating at a cost of $80. Something he had never done before with anyone. After he did that, with me furious about this request as it was completely unfair, I did some legal research. I then screenshotted the appropriate legislation and texted him, saying that it was completely illegal. He didn't respond. 10 minutes before the end of my shift, he fired me for repeated poor performance. After this, I informed all of my prior colleagues about the incident and asked them all to contact the Ontario Labour Board, and so began the arduous process of the Labour Board. 8 months later, the Labour Board sided with all of us for wrongful terminations. I received $3,500 from my termination along with my termination pay, as it turns out. In fact, he did underpay me on every single one of my holiday shifts. I'm not too sure how much the others received, but overall from all of us, it totaled around $15,000 $18,000. I then got a job right next door at a restaurant whose glass faces my previous workplace, and every morning I got to see him running around as he was short-staffed. And many of my coworkers quit when I was fired because he was the devil to work with. I found out after this from his cousin, who went to high school with me, that he had sold his car to pay for our bills. A 2017 Mercedes C300 stopped paying royalties, and then got sued by the franchise owners for breach of contract. The restaurant was subsequently shut down, and he was out of income over $1.50 in fries. From last I heard, he now works at his father's fast food restaurant as a regular employee. Story 2. I was reminded of this incident yesterday during a phone call with a friend from my college days. For a little background, my friend, I'll call her Jill, and I were both about 19 or 20 years old at the time of the incident in 1983. Do the math. And yes, I'm that old. Because Jill was blind ocular melanoma. Important later, she had an advocate. There is another name for this, but for the life of me I can't think of what it is. But you get the idea. That went everywhere with her on the university campus. They made sure she made it safely too, and from each of her classes, and assisted her with test taking, etc. We met when Jill walked by my table in the student union hall, bumped my coffee, and spilled it all over both of us. We've been friends ever since. Because Jill lived off campus with her parents, and I lived in an off-campus apartment a few blocks away. I drove every day to school. We coordinated our class schedules so that I could drop her off to her advocate in the morning, and in the afternoon, the advocate would bring her to me and I would take her home. This one particular semester, Jill's last class on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday ended an hour before mine. Normally, her advocate would hang out with her in the student union hall to wait for me. Since it was Friday, Jill insisted that the advocate bring her to the building where I had class, and she would just wait for me there closer to where I parked the car, and the advocate could go home a little early. This was something Jill did occasionally just to be nice. I always took the same route out of the building and knew to be on the lookout for her. This day, Jill was in her usual spot in the lobby. She was sitting on the floor. There were no seats, with her back against the wall, her cane folded beside her, tinted glasses on, and appearing to stare straight ahead. To Jill's left were the lobby doors, about 30 feet away. Jill thinks she'd been sitting there for maybe 50-55 minutes when she heard what sounded like squeaky wheels rolling over the floor. She didn't bother to call out and just thought it was maybe the janitorial staff with those mop buckets on wheels getting an early start on mopping. Then she heard someone push the panic bar on one of the lobby's double doors and the wheels banging over the metal threshold. A moment later, a woman's voice filled the empty lobby. The conversation that ensued is the best of Jill's and my memory. "What the hell is wrong with you young people? Never in my life have I seen so many inconsiderate brats in all my life." Jill was confused and said, "I'm sorry?" "And you should be, young lady. You could see that I needed help with this hand truck, an upright metal thing with 2 wheels and a small base to put heavy stuff on to move it from one place to another. But you just sat there and did absolutely nothing. Didn't anyone teach you manners? I didn't see you. How could you not see me? I'm the only other person here. I'm sorry, but I didn't see you. I'm blind." "You really expect me to believe that? Blind people can't go to college. You're just too lazy to get off the floor." Jill pulled her cane around, unfolded it, and got to her feet. "Yes, Mom, I am blind, and I can go to college." Me, rounding the corner, asked what's going on. Classes were letting out and students are beginning to leave or change classes. This girl expects me to believe she's blind. She is. That's a load of crap. Prove it. The woman walks up to Jill and takes the tinted glasses from her face. "See?" She directs this to the students who were hanging around to watch the drama, as if she expected them to agree with her or take her side. "She can see. There is nothing wrong with her eyes. She's not really blind." As I stated earlier, Jill had ocular melanoma. As a result, her eyes were surgically removed, and she was fitted with a prosthesis that looked real at a quick glance, but didn't move like normal eyes and were a bit flat in their color. It was kind of like looking into the eyes of a very old doll. However, the best part of Jill's eyes, they were removable. Jill reached up, popped one eyeball out, and held it out to the woman. "Here, look through this and tell me if you can see anything." This lady started backing away and screeching loudly, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" The woman backed away from us so fast, she tripped over either her own feet or those of gathering students, landed on her butt and continued to scoot away. When she got to the door, she pulled herself up, grabbed her hand truck, and left. Jill maneuvered the eye back into the socket. The small crowd of students started clapping and laughing, and a few gave Jill a pat on the back. Jill sighed dramatically and said, "So much for that lady seeing things through my eyes, huh?" Story 3. Background: my family just moved to a new, bigger apartment, which ended up costing a lot less than we saved, so we decided to replace all our appliances and home decor items. After a long day of unloading our storage and carrying everything up to the second-floor apartment, I'm exhausted. I still had to go to Walmart to get everything my apartment needs. I was accompanied by my 10-year-old son, who is a little tall for his age and looks older than he really is. Important for later. My son and I entered Walmart, which is packed, and the checkout lines are so long they stretch into the clothes aisle. While my son and I are shopping, he starts playing Pokémon Go on my phone and walks behind me. We finally got everything we needed and headed to the checkout. As I walked around looking for the shortest line, I walked past a Karen standing in the clothing section, clearly not in line, but staring at the checkout. My son and I got in line behind another customer, 10 feet away from where Karen was standing, and patiently waited for our turn. 5 minutes later, my son, excited to show me a new Pokémon he caught, asks me to try to catch one. Since the line was moving slowly, I figured why not. He hands me the phone, and I attempt to play the game. As I'm trying my second attempt to catch a Pokémon, in comes Karen. I noticed out of the corner of my eye her cart at the front side of my cart. I looked up to see Karen with her back facing me. She was peeking my way, trying to be nonchalant and pretend I wasn't there. At first I didn't say anything, thinking she was looking at clothes or waiting for someone. At this point, I'm still playing the game with my son, but at the same time I'm paying more attention to our surroundings and to Karen. As the customer before us moves up in the line, we move forward too, because at this point Karen is inching closer in between me and the customer now, and she obviously thought I wasn't paying attention because she tried to push her cart in front of mine. I pushed my cart forward, which blocked her way, and she then proceeded to push her cart into mine. "Excuse me, Mom, but we were here in line first. You were way over there when we got in line." "No, I was in line before you. I was trying to find a manager, so I walked over there, but this is still my spot in line." Me clearly knows she's lying. "I'm sorry, but that's not how it works. Even if you were in line before, you still stepped out, and you were nowhere near this line when I got here, and there was a manager in front of where you were standing. But not once in the 20 minutes I've been in line have you said a word to anyone, nor were you in any line. Everyone here is in a rush to leave too, so please wait your turn at the back of the line." "How would you know? You've been looking at your phone the whole time, and I was in line first. I was behind this customer in front of you first. You are the one cutting me, and if you don't move out my way, I'll tell the manager you're cutting me in line. If you don't move, I'll have you thrown out and banned from Walmart. Go ahead. Do it and cry me a river while you at it, because I don't care what you say or do. You are not cutting in front of me. You know what? Screw you." Which, she then starts to walk off after trying to ram me with her cart. My son steps in the way to stop her cart from hitting me, but gets hit in his side. Me, loudly. "Wow, you just hit my son with your cart. You are crazy. If you can't wait in line, don't come to Walmart, Karen." Karen walks off, and my son, and I think it's the end of it. The customer in front of me is now at the register unloading her cart when Karen returns with the manager. "Excuse me, Mom." "Yes. The lady here told me you cut her in line and threatened to beat her up if she didn't shut up and leave. We don't tolerate that kind of behavior here at Walmart. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store," the manager tells me. I looked at him and was about to explain what really happened when Karen interrupted me. Karen, looking smug, thinking she won, takes it a step further. She also hit me with her cart. I want her arrested for assault. I want the police called, as she assaulted me and threatened my life, all because I wouldn't let her skip me. The customer in front of me that was finishing up her transaction turns around looking irritated at the lies Karen was spouting. I've waited in this line for 30 minutes to check out, and at no point were you ever in line behind me, nor did she ever threaten you. You threatened her and rammed your cart into hers. You threatened to have her removed and banned if she didn't let you in, then you hit her son with your cart. She was well within her rights to stand her ground. The manager, looking confused now, asked me if it was true and both my son's, and I said yes at the same time. I started to explain my side of what happened, but Karen kept interrupting me. Lies. All lies. This dumb witch is a liar. She assaulted me. I want her arrested now. Calm down, Mom, we will get to the bottom of, she cut off the manager. No, I want her arrested now, she screamed at him. Mom, you are making a scene. If you don't calm down and lower your voice, I'm going to ask you to leave. She threatened my life and assaulted me, and you're going to kick me out. I want your manager now. I am the general manager of this store. If you want anyone above me, y'all have to call corporate. Now, Mom, I'm going to ask you one more time to calm down before I trespass you from my store. Karen, upset that she is not getting her way. So this is how you run your store. You protect violent people who attack other customers and kick out the victims. You'll have your job. You are not the victim here. Her son and her are. You threatened and attacked them because you got caught skipping the line. The nice customer told her. Mind your own business, witch. No one asked you. It is my business. I witnessed everything, and I will always speak out against disgusting people like you. How dare you speak to me like that, you piece of... That's enough from you, the manager told Karen. The manager, not wanting to deal with Karen anymore, calls the police to escort her out the store and trespass her. In comes the cool cop of our story. Hey sir, what seems to be the problem? He asks the manager. I have a dispute between... Karen, cutting off the manager with fake tears. Officer, this woman threatened my life and attacked me for no reason. I want to press charges and I want her arrested now. Officer, she's lying. She attacked my mother and me because we wouldn't let her cut us in line. Shut up. You're a pathetic excuse for a man allowing this violent mother of yours in public, Karen yells at my son. She is not violent. She is my kind, caring mother. You are the violent one who can't even watch your mouth around kids. You even hit a minor with your cart. I did no such thing. It's true. I witnessed the whole thing. The nice customer was still there, and she told the cop. They are lying. I was the one attacked. Do you have footage of the incident? The cop asks the manager. Yes, I do. My loss prevention guy pulled it up as we were waiting for you to arrive. Karen starts to look nervous and starts making excuses to leave. That will take too long and I'm in a hurry. But you insisted on the police being called. Besides, it shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. But I really have to go. I'm in a rush. You haven't even checked out yet, and it looks to be a 20-30 minute wait, so there is plenty of time. But The cop, cutting in. Mom, you are currently being detained, and I can't let you leave till... Karen, cutting the cop off. You can't detain me. I did nothing wrong. I have rights. From what I understand, you assaulted a minor with a weapon, which is a third-degree felony. But... No buts. Now sit quietly while we review the video. 10 minutes later, Karen was arrested for assault of a minor in the third degree, reckless endangerment of a child, disturbing the peace, and she was trespassed from all Walmart stores. As she is escorted out the store in cuffs, she just kept yelling she never hit a minor. Her son is 10 years old, and you assaulted him with your cart. I suggest you use your right to remain silent. Everyone has had enough with your foul mouth. The cop took statements from everyone and then took Karen away. The manager apologized for our experience and gave me and my son a $50 gift card each. If convicted, Karen could face up to 5 years in prison, a fine of $10,000 or both. Story 4. It was one day when my mother asked me to go to the local grocery store to pick up some things for her. She was preparing for a big feast on Thanksgiving, since my parents were inviting most of our family members to spend it with us this year. She had bought most of the stuff she needed but sent me to pick up a few things she missed. I took my bike and ran to the store with the list my mom wanted me to get. I know my way around this store. I know the employees working there, and they too know me very well. I come across one of the staff members that I'm quite familiar with, and we exchange pleasantries for a moment, catch up and wish each other a happy Thanksgiving. It wasn't a minute before a well-known Karen that is frequenting this store appeared out of nowhere right in front of us, and just started berating the staff member about how he's ignoring her Nietzsche's job right in the midst of a busy day like this and standing right there, chatting with little kids that aren't even his age. She kept threatening the poor guy about calling his manager and getting him in trouble for not doing his job, or worse, getting him in trouble for hitting on little kids in public. Seriously, the guy was just one of the nicest people I know, and he never once crossed the line with me or anyone else I know of. I always thought that he's providing some amazing customer service, and he's one of the few people that seem to be enjoying what he does. He apologizes to her, nods politely to me, and then tries to calm her down and asks her what she needs help with. I'm not the most confronting person out there, so while she was on her horrible rant to this poor staff member, all of me was screaming on the inside that she was wrong, that she's a terrible person for what she's doing to this good guy, and that she needs to leave him alone. But sadly, I just couldn't get myself to scream all of that out loud to her face. I just froze there and watched the staff member smile painfully to me before going away and vanishing between the aisles after she kept dragging him around. At that moment, I really wished for some justice, some karma that would put this woman in her place. She's an evil one. She's not just some entitled person asking for attention. I was old enough to understand that the accusations she was threatening him with could easily send him to prison for a long, long time, and even stain him for the rest of his life. She was not afraid to do that to someone she knew well was innocent of all the horrible stuff she was accusing him of. I swallowed all of that, got washed with the painful feeling of being useless, and just decided to move on and go get what my mom sent me to get. 10 minutes go by, and I start hearing a lot of screaming coming from where the Karen and the staff member disappeared earlier. Charged with a huge emotional wave that took over me, I decided to run towards where she is and just tell her off, and to stop abusing my good friend and to leave him alone. It was unfamiliar territory to me, but I made up my mind. If I was ever going to stand up to some evil person, it was right now. It was to this woman. When I arrive to where she is, I take a deep breath and try to prepare myself for voicing out how I feel about her and how I despise people like her. However, upon closer look, I see her shrieking and screaming, but it wasn't towards the same staff member from before. Actually, it wasn't any of the staff members that I know of, at least. It appears to be a customer. No, wait, oh God, that's not a customer. I mean, he is, but it's not just any customer. That's Steve, one of the most dangerous people in our town. I know that full well because my mother kept telling me if I ever came across him, to just look down and get out of his way as much as possible. Steve was a well-known criminal in this town, convicted in more than 10 cases at least, and was known for getting involved in a lot of gang activities. He was someone that had a quiet demeanor, aside from a nasty scar on his face. If you didn't know him, you wouldn't really think that he's that dangerous. I froze in my place when I recognized it was him. I noticed the staff member from before running towards the manager's office to grab him, and probably call the cops when he saw that Karen started picking a fight with a one man in town that she shouldn't pick a fight with. I went home that day without getting a single item from the list my mom gave me, but I had my reasons. I went to the store a couple of days after what happened that night and decided to ask the staff member what the heck got her to screech at this guy to start with. And he started telling me what happened after he nodded to me and left with her. He told me that she was just pestering him to find her some stuff all over the store while keeping up with the vile threats. Then she bumped into Steve while walking backwards. She caused him to drop what he was picking from the shelf, and then started getting into his face about how he should watch where he is going and stuff like that. Steve did not say a word to her, just kept staring at her the whole time with dead fish eyes, and that got her aggravated even more. Now I don't know if she knew who he was or not, but at that point, it didn't matter, to be honest. She was a Karen. Karens think differently, process things differently, and act on it differently. After a good 5 minutes of screaming into his face, with a manager and staff member trying to calm her down and get her away from him, she shoved him. She probably did, just to get any reaction from the numb guy standing right in front of her. That was the last thing she remembers doing before looking down to her stomach and seeing blood gushing out of it. It seemed as if she didn't realize what happened at first. It surely took her a moment to fall into the ground. It took her a very rare, quiet, screeching-free moment to realize that she just got stabbed. Then panic ensued in the store after some bystanders witnessing the whole thing just saw what happened. The manager tried to contain the situation, begging Steve to just calm down and drop the weapon. But surprisingly enough, the guy that just stabbed a woman did not seem to lose his quiet demeanor. He had the same indifferent reaction on his face as before, and just stood there right where he was the whole time. Didn't try to run or attack anyone else. The cops arrived shortly after. It seemed that the manager had called them right before any of that even happened. They didn't have a problem cuffing up Steve or stripping him of the weapon he stabbed her with. EMS took Karen on a stretcher, and everyone that witnessed the whole situation seemed as if they were just stunned, including me. I barely managed to get back home, and after some time, I eventually managed to tell my mother what I just witnessed, and she just looked horrified. I heard later that Karen made it, and that she didn't die because of her wound. And even a few months later, I was walking down the street with a couple of my friends and saw her limping to her car while using crutches. Sometimes I wonder if what happened that night to her had any connection to the fact that at one point when I was in that store, seeing her torture that poor guy, I truly wished for karma to strike that woman down and gives her what she deserves. I don't know if it was God answering to my emotional wish, or was it a coincidence, but all I'm saying is that she brought this on herself, and that she deserved it. I hope she learned her lesson and came up with something from that horrific experience. As for Steve, last I heard he was still in prison, for many reasons actually aside from stabbing that entitled woman. Story 5. There was this little restaurant I went to. It's a nice little pub with really cheap food and really friendly staff. They also have a shuffleboard table, and that's where this story begins. I was on my lunch break from my actual job. I'm a manager, so I usually have to wear nice polos or button-up dress shirts. Anyway, I'm eating my lunch while playing shuffleboard with myself. The bar is being overrun by a bunch of people, and the poor bartender was all on her own. There weren't any employees helping with the tables out in the dining room. I personally know the bartender, so I came up and asked if she needed any orders taken to any tables. She smiled at me and pointed to the plates that were on the serving tray. "Those go to the table in the corner," she said as she continued making drinks. I nodded and took the tray and made my way over to the table and served them. This one lady well call. Karen, she had the "I want to talk to your manager" style haircut, looks at me and scoffs. Karen. I have never seen it take this long for me to get a sandwich. Me. Sorry for that, hon, but she's been really busy at the bar. I say, pointing to my friend. Karen. I know, and yet you just sit at the shuffleboard table and eat your burger while you let her drown. What kind of manager are you? I raised a brow before remembering how nicely I'm dressed. Seeing she believed I was a manager there, I replied pretty normally. Me. Oh, and don't work here, she... Karen, cuts me off. Don't try to lie your way out of this. I've heard enough. I'm calling the owner of this place right now and letting him know how much of a jerk you are. At this point, I'm trying to explain how I was just trying to help, but she had her phone out and called the guy who owned the pub. Every time I tried to explain this to her, she just flipped me off. I rolled my eyes and just walked back to the bar, telling my friend about the woman. Friend. Oh yay, she's some entitled witch that comes in here every other day. She keeps complaining and trying to get everyone in trouble. She found out my boss's name and searched his number in a phone book, so if any of us try to tell her something she doesn't like, she calls the boss. He usually just tells us to let her eat for free and get her to leave. Like I said, I'm a manager, so when I heard that, I could tell that wasn't a good idea. If you give problem customers free things, they are just gonna come back causing more problems, expecting it to get them more free things. I go back to playing on the shuffleboard and eating my burger, and I see Karen storming up to me. Karen, I told him you were sitting here playing shuffleboard instead of helping your employee. He's on his way up here to fire you. Me, that's gonna be really hard for him to do since I don't work here, you stupid witch. Karen, she got red in the face and she reached over and slapped me, now screaming. How dare you say that to me? I will screw up your whole life, you waste of filth. Now, I'm a simple man, and I was raised to never hit a woman. But I'm a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo and a first-degree black belt in Hapkido. I don't need to hit her to make my point. She goes to slap me again, and I catch her wrist, pulling it in behind her back and kicking out both her feet to bring her to her knees. She couldn't move in this position without pain shooting up her arms and neck, believe me. I've been locked in this position before. At this point, the whole pub turned to see the commotion, and my friend came over to me. Friend, are you okay? Karen, let me go. I am going to get you arrested, and I will sue you so hard ya will be lucky to be living in a cardboard box. I asked my friend if she could get me some zip ties. Once she gets me some, I fashion out some male shift handcuffs and restrain her. At this point, the owner walks in and sees this. Owner, what happened? Karen, your stupid manager assaulted me is what happened. I am suing him and you and your business for this. Owner, he doesn't work for me. He's a regular here lady. Karen got bright red in the face, but she sat there and stayed quiet now. I think she realized what kind of trouble she was in. After a few moments, the police arrived, and I explained the events that unfolded to both the owner and the police. My friend backed me up on all of it, despite Karen trying to deny it. After reviewing the cameras and all, the police officer asked if I wanted to press charges for assault, and I said, gladly. She was sent away in a police car, and no one has seen her since.